Well, let's start. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? So when you do the introduction, say your name, say how you want syzygy to be pronounced, and you can just jump into like the 120-second elevator pitch.
Hi, I'm Trevor Best, co-founder and CEO of Syzygy Plasmonics. At Syzygy, we are working on a new type of chemical reactor that is driven by light from the world's most efficient artificial light sources, and it energizes the world's most stable and active photocatalyst. We're using this technology in an application for turning biogas from dairy farms or landfills into sustainable aviation fuel. Our unique process can make fuel that qualifies both as a renewable fuel of non-biologic origin, RFNBO as it's known, which is also called eSAF, and biosaf to meet very, very low prices for our customers, which are airlines, transportation companies, et cetera. I'm really excited to talk here today about data rooms and other nuances of getting a startup up and off the ground and supported by investors. So great to meet everybody.
Yeah, and what I noticed is you talked about the technology a little bit, but not like anything about how it works, right?
God, no! Nobody wants to hear how it works in 2 minutes. There's no way. Like.
But I think that's an important lesson.
Hey,
right?
Maybe that is true because my first elevator pitch was like, I've got a plasmonic photocatalyst, and it's resonant against these wavelengths of light. And like, no one gives a shit.
No one knows what 4 of the 5 words in that sentence mean. So yeah. No, and I guess just how did you get it so pithy and like, I mean, do you practice like in front of a mirror or like how did you get to where you are?
So I started off in theater, did theater every year from like first grade through 12th grade, did debate in high school, got decently good at public speaking. So I have some practice there. And like I personally, anytime I'm presenting, it's, just like play the role. Yeah. Hey, we're playing the role of the teacher today. Guess what? I get to play the role of the CEO. So that's kind of my mindset. If you haven't had any practice public speaking, like you haven't done Toastmasters or anything, practicing in front of a mirror can help. But I'm lucky in that I've always been pretty good at public speaking.
Yeah, I don't remember if you've told me this, but I have a little script here, but we're gonna go off script. I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs will come by and they'll say, I'm not an extrovert. How does everyone else get out there and talk? And I want to ask the question, Trevor, are you an extrovert or are you playing a role?
Hell no, I'm not an extrovert. I'm an incredibly introverted person and I'm just playing a role. Yeah. It's funny. One of our investors did a whole personality assessment of all their CEOs and they showed like where we all charted. And out of this group of like 30 CEOs, there's only one other person who's more introverted than I was. So this being in front of people and being on stage and stuff is absolutely exhausting for me. But it's like flexing a muscle. And yeah, the one rule is like never quit talking. Like don't let awkward silence fill any gaps. And you just get better at flexing the muscle and being out there playing the role, saying what your job needs you to say in that moment. And eventually after years of doing it, it eventually gets easy.
Do you feel like now that you've kind of moved into a larger company, you have to play CEO more often, I guess, if that makes sense, like with staff and with different stakeholders?
It's all about like what's happening in the moment. If you play CEO all the time and you're never just a human being. So when you're playing the role, you're not yourself. If you play CEO all the time, it'll be disingenuous to your, board, your investors, your employees. And so you gotta just be normal. For me, it's really been as we've grown, I've accepted that one of my roles is that of the leader. And so you just got to push through and like be positive and supportive for everyone. Like everyone needs you to do that. And like flexing the muscle, it was really difficult in the beginning.
Yeah.
And it just gets easier over time. We started a morning meeting at 9 a.m. every morning. The whole company meets and like we talk through like what people are working on. We have different subjects. We keep it fresh. The first 2 months of running that meeting were so exhausting for me because, you know, I'm like, gotta be positive, like,
Gotta have the energy.
Yeah, gotta,
Yeah.
but eventually like things started to flow more. And I don't know, you can be real with the team. Like sometimes I'm like, God, I'm tired today. Who else is tired? And half the team's like, shit, man, we're working so hard. And I'm like, I know. God, I know. Yeah. Okay, let's get back to work. Like,
we got to get energized. All right, we can go back to fundraising. I want you to reach way back. This is another warm up question. Who wrote your first check, and how did you convince him in that first meeting? Or last meeting?
Yeah, I believe our very first check. Well, the very, very first checks actually came from myself and Suman. And the two professors who co-founded the company with us. Like that was the very, very first initial money. The first real investor check was an individual in the Houston community, an angel investor who is currently working for another startup. He worked for us for a little while, but he gave us our first catalyzing check. Okay. And the reason why I don't want to give his name is I don't want people to watch this and then go hit him up expecting for money, because people will know him.
People are going to ask me, and I'll tell them who it is, and I think I know who. Don't worry. No, that's interesting.
But they gave us the first check of $50,000, and that helped agglomerate a group of around $500,000 of angel money in.
Oh wow! So that was the catalyst. Was that first $50K? Was he a lead or what?
Literally, the first check is always the hardest. That one is always the hardest, and sure, we ended up getting a total of $900K in.
Wow!
But it snowballed, and the first little snowball that got it all rolling was that check. And so
was it something about him as an individual, or like he was the one who was willing to take that risk? Did he use the lead title?
We had worked together before. He didn't really use the lead title. I mean, we were still so green, and there weren't any like startup classes that teach you the ropes like this is going to. And so like we didn't even really know like seed round or A round or, so he didn't really like call himself a lead, but had some friends, and we knew some people who were interested, and we grouped it up. Like the really initial chunk was $350K, and then there was another 150 that jumped in on top of that for the 500, and then a few months later another 400K hit.
Yeah, interesting. Did all the followers like call him, or was it more just the fact that he was in?
More just the fact that he was in and it was happening. And for him, like his characteristics. He had worked with us previously, so he knew us. He knew our work ethic. So there was this is like a friends and family type thing. Yeah, definitely on the friends side. And he was a bit more on the risk taking side, and had the liquidity.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He was looking for things to invest in that were a little crazier. And I think he knew that he was seeding his future because he then joined us for a while.
Yeah. So some of the lesson here is like in some ways like a friends and family around. I think sometimes we joke about it as maybe less serious, but sometimes just what you need to catalyze money or capital from folks who just don't know you as well. Like that is really the launch sometimes is getting the catalyst in. But also the other thing you said was people knew it was happening, right? Like that was the activation and just activation energy to like say the rounds coming together, right?
Yeah, and I think about this in terms of pressure. Like you have to like build pressure for the round to happen for it to cross some kind of like activation barrier where it goes from like could happen to is happening. And there's different ways you can do that. You can do that with like competitive tension, like, hey, you need to give me a term sheet or somebody else is, or you can do it because somebody loves you, like friends and family or a customer, or somebody cares enough about you that they want to see this happen, that they're willing to provide that activation energy.
Yeah.
And there's an art to building that pressure through either the single somebody loves you pathway or the multiple competitive tension where you're trying to get people to compete against each other to give you one. But those are the only two ways that I have seen it actually happen. In the early days, like the seed round, what provided that pressure to get somebody over the line was one, that Suman and I had showed that level of commitment. Like my co-founder and I, we had, taken the flying leap, quit our jobs. We did not have any other capital coming in. Like it was like fundraise or die. And when you're burning through cash, like, and you're communicating that to people like, hey, this can't go on forever. Like I need to get money by this date or I'm toast. I think that really helped get things over the line. I think without that, I don't know if there would have been enough pressure.
Like there's almost a FOMO there of the opportunity won't last forever, not because the round closes, but also because you have a timeline on what you want to achieve, right?
You need some kind of timeline. Like something has to set a timeline to help build that pressure. No timeline, no pressure.
Yeah. Okay, great. What do you think the scrappiest thing is that you've done to land a check? Other than put your life savings to work.
Man, I think our Series A has the best example there. We had a term sheet. We needed to hit a minimum of $3 million to move forward with closing. So there's a minimum close amount. And we were talking to a really big name investor, and they dropped like 2 weeks before the term sheet expired. And everyone in the market was talking to this person. So when they dropped, all of our investors dropped. And we had like very tiny amount. We had 500K committed, and we needed to raise 3 million. Suman and I thought we were dead, and we decided that we would rather die on our feet swinging than let this beat us and give up. And so we had like 2 weeks to scrape together 2.5 million. We sweet talked another one of our investors who, thank God, they came in with 1.5. So we're like, oh, we're not dead. Now we're only 1 million left. We got some from an angel cohort called CDL up in Canada. That was about 600K.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And we're like, oh, man, we're at 2.6. We got 3 days left. And I'm flying back from Canada, calling everybody and just taking any amount that I can to hit 3 million. The smallest check we ended up taking to hit 3 million was like $6,000. And like filled that last 400K up with about another like 10 or 15 people. And got to the minimum close amount and like called all the investors like, hey, we're going to move forward with closing. And then another big player was like, hey, wait, don't close without us. And then suddenly it was like a crazy round. But
it's so funny that like that kind of momentum, like people want to know it's going to happen. And so when that big lead dropped out, people kind of assumed it's not going to happen. But then you forced your way through, you kind of rallied the troops. And then this other person, the big investor wanted to come back in because they saw it, was going to close.
Different big investor.
Different big investor, but like,
that had just been sitting
them
on the sidelines watching. But as soon as it went from, may happen to is going to happen with or without you, that was when they wanted to join. And so that feeling, this is going to happen with or without you, that is something you need to cultivate with people.
Yeah, interesting. I just as an aside, I think we were both at that CDL together. I got eliminated at that round, and you guys moved on, and I think I did pretty well. But CDL is coming to Houston, Texas. I think they're at A&M this year, so I think it's a fantastic program. But I'll be honest, that's when I decided we needed to have a Greentown in Houston. Because
I know,
we were all fundraising together all over the country. Right. It was crazy.
It's like how come I got to fly to Calgary to get money?
Yeah.
But yeah, CDL was intense. I
Oh
think
yeah.
something like more than 75% of the startups that go in get eliminated. It's like it goes from like 100 or more down to like, you know, 7 or 10. It's
Yep.
brutal.
Yep. Yep.
We jokingly called that competition the killing floor.
Yeah, it was good. Like they had really high quality people. So I can't say enough good things about kind of the cohort, even though it's kind of a wonky schedule. But
Yeah.
no, it's funny to know how tight it is sometimes and how those programs matter at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
that must have been stressful. How did you manage the stress?
I don't know, man. Try and get enough sleep.
Is that
Adopt a good life philosophy.
mm.
I'm an absurdist, and so
Yeah.
that helps me. None of this matters that much, but I get to choose what matters to me, and so like
Mm.
I try and not let things get to me.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
luck though.
Yep. It's a mindset.
Yeah.
Do you speaking of luck, do you believe you're lucky or do you believe that you create luck?
Oh hell yeah, man. There's some skill to this,
Yeah.
but a lot of it is like luck. Like, hey, this is the game. You're
Mm.
starting a startup. Predict where the market is going to be in 5 years. And I look back in like NFTs, which I still don't understand. Like those things went insane just a few years ago. Like 5 years ago, no one would have predicted NFTs. And, you know, maybe, I don't know, that might have been right around the time I might be getting old. But like it's so difficult to see what's coming. And the market has been decoupled from fundamentals for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a psychology
Yep.
game. Yeah, and you're trying to pick something that's going to be like hot and people are going to want to buy in mass quantities. You're trying to estimate where regulation is going to go. You're trying, yeah, there's a lot of luck to this because if
Mm.
you have the right thing at the right place at the right time, you can be huge. And if you're just a little early or a little late or you know don't quite get the product offering right, and so it requires this constant navigation and
Mm.
you're like running through a minefield and there is some skill involved. I hope you're
Yeah.
looking at your feet while you're running, making trying not to step on anything, but like man, it's real hard not to step on a mine, and I step on them all the time and somehow I just keep running.
I wonder, as you're out there raising capital, and investors know this, right? They're playing a portfolio. How do you convince them that you're going to be the lucky bet to bet on?
Yeah, so this is about like how do you position yourself, how do you talk about yourself and your progress. And I like to think about this in terms of what I call the awesome truth.
Mm.
Are y'all able to see this?
Yeah, we see it coming through.
Okay, so whenever I think about like what is true about syzygy, I start off kind of here in the brutal truth,
Mm.
and you know this is important to understand, and you need to be constantly aware that this exists, but it's not something that you want to go talk to everybody about all the time. And
Mm.
let me give you an example. 90% of startups die.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure, Jason, you have talked
Yep.
about this at some point. Like, that is the brutal truth.
Yep.
90% of startups die. Hey, Mr. Investor, don't 90% of startups die. Don't you want to give me money? Like, no,
Yeah.
that's not a story that sells. And it's true, but like, let's not talk about that all the time. So that's where we start. And then we progress from there to like the truth. What is true? So
Mm.
like, hey, syzygy, if we are successful and if we're good in our product development, we can create a product that people want to buy and the company can be successful. And this is probably a decent return on your money. And like, yeah, that's true. Like, God, man, I hope it is. If there's no possibility in making money in what you're doing, I hope you go do something else with your life. Like, of course, if syzygy is successful, we can make money. But then there's the awesome truth. And, if syzygy is the most successful we can be if we ace our commercial strategy, if our technology development goes well, then there is the chance that our technology could fundamentally change how planet Earth looks at doing chemistry, enable smaller, more modular chemical plants. Man, there is so much of our feedstock biogas out there, and we could turn it into so much sustainable aviation fuel. Like, yeah, if things go right for us, we could be a multi-billion-dollar business, in like 5 years. And like, yeah, that's the awesome truth. And I can provide a lot of evidence showing you that that is my awesome truth. There's a very real potential. I could be worth, $5-10 billion in a decade or so, and like that's a damn good investment if you make it now. That's our awesome truth. And then there's total bullshit. Like, there is no risk associated with us. Like, I with 100% certainty assure you that you're going to get a return on your money. Like, hey, if you invest in us, our reactor will like make sandwiches or something too. I don't know. That's total bullshit. So you can never go into something that is total bullshit. So your goal as a CEO is to ride this line right here from what is the awesome truth without going into total bullshit. The reason being is because all the investors, they've been doing this a long time, they assume that things aren't going to go as well as you're saying. Like, they've seen a bunch of startups. This isn't their first rodeo. So they are going to come and discount, anything you've said. And that means this piece here, they are going to erase it. They are going to say, boom, gone. I think that this startup is actually going to end up here. And after they've given you that haircut, they go, okay, hey, like, this seems true. This seems real. It seems like it could be a good investment. Let's go for it. If you don't tell your awesome truth and you're like, hey, this could be a good investment, and you don't paint that picture, where are they going to cut you back to? When they give you the haircut, they're going to go, man, like, if the best case scenario is mediocre, then what's probably going to happen is like bad, because I see a bunch of startups die. Like, so you're going to get that haircut. When you're talking about the company, you need to imagine, like, what is your awesome truth? What is, if things go well, what can happen? There is a point where it crosses over and it's so unrealistic. Like, I don't know who would credibly predict NFTs a few years before that happened. Predicting they would go away was pretty easy, but predicting they would rise, like, I don't know how you do that without sounding like total bullshit. But well, sorry to any
no.
NFT companies that are selling those JPEGs still, but
I don't think they're going to be in our target audience. But no, I've heard you describe this a couple of times, right? There's the total bullshit is the perpetual motion machine. It's the companies that get you in trouble, or the pitches that get you in trouble. But I think the other way I've heard you describe this is using syzygy Plasmonics' name. And for those who don't know, a syzygy is an alignment of the stars. And I think the awesome truth, I think the way you said this once, is the awesome truth is that moment in the pitch where all the ifs kind of line up. And if we do all the things and we have a syzygy of truths, it'll be awesome. Right? Is that something you said before? Or did I make that up?
Along those things, in our name and talking about alignment, like, go figure, I probably have a bunch of metaphors about that. Syzygy means, for those of you on the call who maybe have never heard it, it means the alignment of three planetary bodies. So anytime the sun, the moon, and the earth line up, like during an eclipse, that's a syzygy. For us, it's the alignment of energy, technology, sustainability. Where energy, technology, and sustainability line up, you get syzygy. But there's more depth to that. The deeper thing is actually what I call, and what is commonly called, the rule of threes. You can just look this up. For some reason, human beings like remember things, and it's easy to like compartmentalize if you put things in threes. And so talking about the truths, I talk about those during what I call the hook of the pitch. So it's your first three slides. You need something to grab people's attention. and you need something that presents, like, you need to present your problem, and then you need to present yourself as the solution. And if you're attention grabber, if people look at that and they're like, oh yeah, that's true, or like, I resonate with that, like, check mark true. And then your problem statement, you need to get into enough definition in the problem statement that someone who knows that area looks at that and says, oh yeah, that's true. Your target audience knows the problem and goes, oh yeah, that's true. Then when you present yourself as the solution, it's easier for them to go, oh yeah, that's true as well. If you don't get their attention, you don't get to the next stage. The next stage, if they don't agree with your problem or they don't understand it, they're like, who cares?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That you
Yeah.
present yourself and they're like, yeah, well, I don't see why that's a solution, but yeah, so you tee them up and then it's like dominoes dropping. And the more you can align that, the more times you can get them to like say yes and nod their head and confirm that like that's true during your pitch, the more credible you come off.
That's fantastic. Like that's the storytelling, right? You gotta cue people up, the logics, and it needs to be obvious to them, or you got to move on. Like if it doesn't resonate, I don't know how much you can convince them otherwise, right?
So that hook is pretty prescriptive. Beyond the hook, how we've tended to structure things is based off the list of questions that people would ask. And so generally, like, investors want to know that there's a big market there. So you're going to need some kind of market numbers very quickly. Customers are going to want to know like more definition around their problem, showing them very clearly that you understand their problem. And they're going to want to get you to like a value prop and how much does it cost them very quickly. So at any point in your pitch, if you think about like what questions typically come up here, the next you get these check marks if the next slide answers the question they are likely to ask. And so that's how I think about it. And for just in case, since we're talking about pitch practice, if you haven't talked about this, the best place to start when building a company pitch, if you've never done it before, is Guy Kawasaki's 10-20-30 deck. Like first pitch you ever build, don't listen to me, go do Guy Kawasaki 10-20-30 deck. And then after you've built a couple of those, then start thinking about, oh, what questions am I getting? And then restructure your pitch to answer the questions as they come up.
Is this part of his Art of the Start book, or is this a different book, or just a different, I guess it's on the internet, so we should just Google it.
I have no idea. I don't really read self-help books, but I found this little blurb helpful. Okay. And you can Google it and it's out on the internet.
All right. We'll find Mayush and I will find it and share it with folks when we do this. Good. So I want to transition. You forwarded me this fantastic email, and it's called what would you call it? Fundraising notes. And the first thing you open with are the 5 stages of a fundraise. Do you want to share with us what those stages are?
Absolutely. So whenever you're running a typical fundraise, there is a process to it. This is the same kind of process that investment bankers go through. And there's 5 stages to it, as Jason mentioned. The first thing you're going to want to do is preparation. And this includes preparing your data room and all of your diligence materials, and also prepping an investor list. And so this is like who do I talk to that will respond and be positive to me? There are a lot of firms out there. And so your investor list, you should be targeting like dozens to like 100 or more different investors. And if you don't have, dozens or, more likely like 100 investors in your list, then my feedback would be you're not done searching yet. So get a huge investor list, you get all of your materials ready. And I'll go back through and I'll talk about each one of these more in depth. The second stage is you hit all of them up at the same time. Hitting them all up at the same time is very important. We'll talk about that in the why that's important in the 3rd and 4th stages. But you hit them all up at the same time. You try and get all of your introduction calls within like the same month. Max like 6 weeks. After that, you go into detailed diligence. This is where you start giving people access to your data room and you start moving them through the diligence process. Generally, I've found that investors will know whether or not they're going to invest in you after about 10 meetings. So to let you know, they don't decide after one, but if you've had like 10 meetings and you don't have any idea, then they're dragging their feet. But you're trying to walk all of these investors through this diligence, show them the things they want to see, like the techno-economic model, the market research, you're trying to walk them through and answer all of their questions and move them through their committee processes. Investors generally will go to committee to advance things forward. So you're trying to herd the cats and keep them all in the same general area. Why step 2 and hitting them all up at the same time is very important, is because if you don't do them all at the same time and you have one person at the end of their process and one person at the beginning of the process, you never build a critical mass. And trying to herd the cats and get them all to start and get to the end of the process around the same time is all about building pressure. And this gets to stage 4, which is push for your term sheet. Once you have enough groups in the pipeline, for us, we usually want to have about 10 that may invest. If you've got less than that, it's more challenging. If you got more than that, great. But 7 to 10 is usually when we'll start to make the push. That is like 7 to 10 investors who are on like meeting number 6 or 7. We've answered a whole bunch of diligence questions from them. They're interested. That's when we generally start to give a timeline and we say, hey, on this date, we have a bunch of people in our data room. On this date, we want to start talking terms. We've already started talking terms with other investors. Let's try and get a term sheet in place. Would you like to send us one? Would you like us to send you one, et cetera? But you start to set dates, and you eventually, once you get enough people in, you really lock in a date. Like, terms must be in by X date, or we will move forward without you. And you see how many term sheets you can get. Yeah. My conversion rate from like interested and in the push to term sheet, with about 10 investors, you'll usually get 2 or 3 if you've done everything well.
Yep.
So about 1 in 5 ish.
Yep. I think we had you and Moji and Tim on stage at some event, and you were talking about a successful raise. And I don't remember if it was you or it was OG. You said the difference between a successful financing and a failed financing is 1 term sheet, and the difference between a successful financing and an awesome financing is 2 term sheets. And all the work of like herding the cats is to get the 2 term sheets, because that's where you have the ability to pick the better deal, right?
Yep.
Do you remember if you said that?
Obviously,
or?
getting more. I can't remember if I said that, but obviously, the more the better. And then finally, to end up, the 5th step is once you've got a term sheet, then sprint to the finish, all the lawyer documents and things like that. But get a good lawyer, and they'll explain that process to you. So, which one of those did you want me to dig into? 1 or 2 of those? So, in that first step, prepping your diligence. What should be on that diligence list? What should be in that data room? And, I'm going to go through our list that we used for our Series B. And I'm also going to go through our current data room for our Series D and talk about what's in there. So in general, you're going to want to have high-level sections that cover your market. So, what the total size of the market is, different regulatory considerations. If you're in clean tech, like, how carbon accounting is done in your market, potential customers and their names, different specifications about them, like market cap size, et cetera. So information on your market. Then you are going to have a section with like information on your technology. So, could be setting baseline. So what was known before your company started, like what those metrics were, what kind of metrics you're achieving, your different intellectual property positions, high level design details of your product, unit economics, etc. Then you're going to want a section, this is kind of expanding on the unit economics, digging into the techno economics of your solution. So some kind of Excel model that shows, how everything works and how money flows in and out for your product, like what kind of value it brings against other things in the or like other competitors, other things in the market. That techno-economic analysis is one of the more important pieces that people will use to validate, and form an opinion on how you'll perform when you get out there. Beyond that, you're going to want evidence of traction. So, high-level folder on traction can include, letters of intent you've received from customers or MOUs, any kind of contracts you've signed, contracts with your suppliers, things that prove you are engaging, with others outside in the market and that they are interested in your technology or solution. Depending on where you're at in your commercial journey, this can take a lot of forms. But this is generally some kind of document that's signed by parties outside your company, by someone with some level of authority outside of your company at a customer or financer or other critical types of players who you will need to interact with to go to market. Beyond that, you'll need to have a section on the finance for your company. So this section will get into the business model. We build a second model in addition to the techno-economic model in Excel. And this is how the business works. All the cash in and out for the business, has salaries, has spend on CapEx, has spend on operating costs, so all the ins and outs for finances for the business going forward. So this is a projection. You can't have actuals in the past, but it is extending into the future for generally monthly or quarterly for 12 to 24 months. And then beyond that, we do it yearly for about 5 years. And this is for them to estimate hey, how are you going to perform? How do sales pick up? So in this, it's not just cash going out the door. It's also money coming in. Are you going to need to fundraise again? So you need to show that in 2 years, we're going to need to raise more money. And this financial model allows them to, assess how your company measures up in terms of all their venture math. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, you need information on your team. So this is an organization chart, resumes for key team members. And then finally, any other legal considerations. On the legal considerations, generally these are company formation documents. And if you have any convertible notes, outstanding, things like this. But definitely, I would get advice from your personal legal counsel on what you should also include in the data room. Mm-hmm. So I'm giving high-level guidelines. Definitely ask your lawyer about any other documents that need to be in there.
Good.
So at a high level, this is what we have had in our data rooms. Right now, in our Series D data room, we've done two things. One is we have two versions of the data room. We've got a high-level version that we will start people off with, and then we create sub-rooms for individual investors if they start requesting a lot of additional information. And so we'll create so we talk about it, level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 is the initial intro. Level 2 is the deeper information. And then level 3 is custom to each investor. Okay. So our data room has level 1 and 2 in it. And then for level 3, we'll create a second thing, the second data room for them specifically, and put stuff in there.
So to ask you, what's the thought process there? Is it to measure engagement? Is it to not give them too much information? Is there an NDA involved between level 1 and 2? if you can kind of
So,
walk us through that. Yeah.
so to even get into level 1, we will have people sign an NDA, which most good investors don't have problems with. And then we'll give them access to the first data room. For the second one, depending on what questions they ask, like it might be pretty sensitive info. And so like that first one is like, they could be corporate, strategic, they could be financial, they could, be a competitor, they could be all kinds of stuff. So that first one's scrubbed pretty hard. We keep it separate after that because like some of the information that we send to the financial VCs, we might not want to send to someone who like might buy our reactor. So we don't want to let them know our exact manufacturing costs because then they're just going to like squeeze the heck out of us and take all of our margin because they'll know they can because they have the cost structure for how it all works. So that's why we will share that info separately. Other people might want to like really dig into like, hey, what kind of like manufacturing defects have you seen, or let's talk about the failures that you've seen during testing, which if you're just like, no, we won't talk about that, then, they might turn away and be like, okay, you're hiding something. So you want to be able to talk about it, but also I don't want to send a list of all of our equipment failures to every investor out there because if they aren't concerned about it, why would I start that conversation? And like, if we put it in their data room, like they'll see it. So yeah, that's why we split it off into separate data rooms after the initial one. The initial one's like scrubbed and everybody can get access to. And then the individual ones is just what kind of way of logging, what has been shared and keeping it, specific by who we're talking to.
Okay. Do you use like DocSend, or is there a different solution you're using?
So we use box.com.
Oh, okay.
It works well enough. You could use Dropbox. There's all different kinds of stuff. There's specific data room software. Yeah. Pick your poison.
Got it. Okay. You were going to say something?
This is also tied to like the progression. So, hey, you make your push, you do all your intro calls. How do you know if you're getting traction? You give people access to the data room. How responsive are they? Are they getting back to you on a like daily or weekly basis? If you don't hear from them for a month, they're not really responsive. If they're asking you a lot of questions and you're having to generate responses and you're filling the data room, their individual data room up with stuff, like you can get a pretty good idea of who's active and who's not. And when you're thinking about making your push, you do the push because if somebody isn't active in there, then the push is going to push them out of the pipeline entirely, or you're going to see them start to pick up activity. And so like, all of this is a good way to determine whether or not you have a good footing to make a push or not.
Interesting. Okay, good. Let's see. Are there other things you want to talk about? Otherwise, I can dig in on some details that I want to ask about.
Yeah. Hey, no, feel free to ask away.
Yeah. So on market, you're talking about a Series B. So I think this is for a company where you actually have stuff. And when you think about a seed round company, when did you actually start to put together a data room? Let's start there.
So the first time I did it was during my Series A.
Okay.
Yeah. I probably should have done it in my seed round. Like there's no reason not to. And
start
like,
to collecting it as you start to get this info, right?
There's no reason not to. And you're going to have to put this together eventually. And if you want to raise like big money, they're going to expect you to have it. And so it's like good hygiene to just get started on it immediately.
How do you,
because if you can't figure out how to do this at the seed round, then
you're going to learn the hard way.
Listen, you're going to have to do this. And
yeah. When you throw information in on like your market, like do you put like a special deck in for each section, or like do you just trust people to wade through all the materials and know what they're seeing? That was always a question I had. It was like, am I giving them too much?
So
it's like
whenever I talked about level 1 and level 2 and level 3 info, so level 1 and level 2, I mentioned were in the first data room. They're both scrubbed. And so these are standard decks that we share with everybody. The level one deck is a complete pitch of about 50 slides that talks about literally everything. It talks about the technology, it talks about the market, it talks about all of it. And it's like the main points for each section. Like our technology is tested and proven. Here's the data. Next section. It is very condensed. We then create what we call level 2 decks. And so this is like, we'll have a single deck of about however many slides you need, 20, 30, 40, 50, however many slides you need to just fully interrogate that section. So like on the technology, like how does it work? What is the IP status? What testing have you done? What is your technology progression plan? What key milestones? So everything that you can think of to put in that section, at least 20 slides, probably more than 50 is overdoing it, but just on tech. And then we make those for tech, market, customer traction.
So it's almost I don't want to say independent decks, but you're thinking through like what is the content here that we want people to see, and then there's the diligence room almost has like the supporting references or the content that they can really dig into beneath the deck or supporting the deck. Is that the way to think about it?
Okay, so let's go back to storytelling.
Yeah.
And you had me start off with a 2-minute pitch. So like, listen, I got my 2-minute pitch where if I just run into somebody like, hey, this is what we do. We have crazy new tech, and if you have biogas or if you need SAF, like, let's talk. Then I've got a 1-hour presentation. Like, hey, I've got a meeting with the managing director of a fund, and I want to go through my presentation, my 1-hour pitch. That level 1 deck is essentially the 1-hour pitch for the company. It tells the complete story, everything they need to know to make a decision, and compressed into 1 hour. And that the deck supports that. Then there's another one. They're going to go, hey, I'm not a technology person. I need you to talk to my tech guy. And my tech, my PhD that we have on staff that we have give a check mark to everything needs to spend some time with you. And so then that second level deck, that technology deck, that is your 1-hour presentation to that technical person.
Got it.
Like the decision maker is probably going to have somebody to check out like the commercial aspect, the financial aspect, the technology aspect, and so your second level decks are the 1 hour that you will talk to for everything that person needs to know to make a decision.
Okay. Very detailed. And I think that's, when we mentor entrepreneurs, like the first pitch deck, the teaser is not the only deck. You really, I think when I was articulating it to people, you need to plan to have 200 to 300 slides. They don't all go in the first deck, right? But that's what is part of the financing.
Well, here, I can tell you all. So that Guy Kawasaki 10, 20, 30, that's your teaser. And, then you have your bigger like main deck, which is your level 1 deck that has the whole story in it. And then you have the individual sub decks for main elements of that story, like tech, finance, et cetera, explaining those. And so like, what will we do? Like, we'll kind of start with an outline at the top, but generally we'll like make out all the slides for all the sub decks. We'll pull the key messages out of those and create the level 1 main deck. And then we'll pull the best 10 slides out of that thing and make the teaser. And that's kind of how we do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you have to do to make sure the story comes together. Right. I mean, that's because you got to pull all the threads. No, so I think that's really insightful. And I think even folks who are not who are raising their first round, you're not going to do all the things you need to do for a Series B diligence, but this is thinking ahead to, you've raised your seed round. When you go to Series A, you kind of want to build all these materials all the way ahead. And kind of the lesson we're trying to teach here is fundraising isn't something you do in 3 months. Fundraising is something you plan for a year, if not 18 months, because you need to literally kind of put all this content together. And oh, by the way, it always is changing. So you got to like be on top of it. And this is why fundraising is a full-time job, right? I mean, you're just out there constantly refining it.
Yeah,
right.
That's the life. You just
got to keep
CEO. Going. I had to talk to hundreds of people before I got my first yes.
Yep. But I want to talk a little bit about the traction. So I think when you think about the first like letters of intent or something in there, um, how firm were they? Or I guess always question is like, at what point is it real? And I definitely come across businesses where the first order comes from like my uncle's friend, and at some point an investor is going to figure that out. But I don't know if I don't know if you've ever dealt with that. Yeah.
Yeah, on the traction piece, I mean, there's kind of a few elements. So one is like who the partner is and like at what level person are you talking to inside that organization. So like obviously if you're talking to Amazon, like that's a huge organization and if they have a crazy amount of buying power. Now, if you're talking to like a warehouse director or something, probably doesn't move the needle too much. But if like you got Jeff Bezos's signature on a piece of paper saying that he's going to personally support your company by buying your product, that means a whole lot. So there's that element of like who, and then there's also another element of like how binding is it, because Jeff Bezos saying he's interested is great, but it's not, money hasn't changed hands yet. They can see a lot of potential if it works, but it doesn't prove that like somebody's willing to pay for this. Whereas, Uncle Joe committing to actually buy one, could be very meaningful. Depends on who Uncle Joe is and how expensive this is. If Uncle Joe owns a multi-million-dollar business and, is paying you a lot of money to deliver your service, that could mean something. If you're selling Tootsie Roll Pops and Uncle Joe bought one for 50 cents, like nobody cares.
There's good point.
It's difficult to tell you like exactly what it looks like. You just got to use your discretion. The key things though is either needs to be a signed piece of paper somewhere in there that can be sent to investors kind of as evidence, or the other party potentially and it's even better if it's an the other party needs to be willing to take a call with the investors. Because if the investors can jump on the phone and hear the other party say like, yeah, this is real, this is why I'm interested, it also makes it real for them. And and there's another whole level of thing like how much money are you raising? And if you're raising a seed round, then the burden of evidence is a lot lower than if you're raising a Series D.
Yeah. I'm curious with the letters of intent. I run into some founders who, I don't know, they set a milestone for themselves. I need 5 letters of intent. And I'm wondering, does it matter what the volume is? And I think what I heard you say is it kind of matters what the quality is. And I feel like you always want to get a letter of intent that's better or from a more prestigious person. Like do you find the volume matters for like non-binding things?
I mean, yeah, definitely volume matters.
Okay.
There is still the quality element, but the more you get, generally, the better. It shows that you're active, and investors, I personally view this as a portfolio approach. Like if you put all your eggs in one basket and the market shifts, then you might not have any outs. So I would try and have a portfolio of options. And this can even be seen as like I don't know, whenever you're growing a company, you have a lot of options on how in the market and what your product and service offer profile. So especially if you're really early and you're still exploring business models, because I mean, what is a startup other than like a search for a sustainable business model? It's sometimes good to have a couple options that are a little different from each other, so that there's optionality in the future, depending on how the market plays out. I've had a lot of success with that. Okay. We're doing sustainable aviation fuel today. We started on hydrogen, but we've been progressing sustainable aviation fuel since like 2018 in the back, like kind of on the back burner, so that we could make this switch if we ever needed to. And it's played out well for us because the market changed.
Okay, no, that makes sense, and that's a good insight. What was I going to ask? Oh, when you get customers on the phone with investors, how much do you train them or prep them from the customer specifically?
I would have at least one prep call with them, and at least make sure you get the question like, hey, you're not going to, jump on this call and say something bad about us. Or if you are, like, let's maybe not do this. And let's talk about that. Talk about that with me first. But if they're going to be genuine and try and say good things, I try not to prep them too much because, investors can pick up on it if you've prepped them way too much. So make sure they understand like what you do and your value prop and how it applies to them, and make sure they're prepared to articulate that. But beyond that, let them say it in their own words.
Okay. When you're raising Series D, what's different this time around that makes this raise challenging than maybe your B or C round?
Listen, every round has its own nuances. And once again, we talked about lucky or not. And a lot of this is just like where the market is. My seed and A were raised before the clean tech 2.0 boom. My B and C were raised during the clean tech 2.0 boom. That boom is now past, and I'm raising my D in the not clean tech 2.0 boom. And, the milestones of what's expected by the market of the startups is shifting. So like if I told you about my B and C, it's not the same market. For us in the first round, it was very difficult. We were in Houston. There was not much of a footprint or known around Houston. Because of that, we had to take a pretty decreased valuation. In the second round, this was before the clean tech boom. And because being in Houston, we were talking to a bunch of energy companies. We were very focused on using methane. And some of the clean tech investors didn't like that, which caused our Series A to almost implode. In the clean tech boom, we switched over to electrified reactor. There's a big push for electrify everything around like 2021. And we rode that. We're like, hey, electrify a reactor. We help to electrify chemistry. And that electrification message played strong. In the Series C in 2022, we needed to see evidence of customer traction. We got field trials with customers, and we used those field trials to push the fundraise over the line. Like, hey, we're getting commercial traction. Now, like the market has shifted. The evidence needed for commercial traction goes like potentially even beyond just field trials. Like given the stage and how much money we've raised, like we really need to convert a serious long-term commercial contract. So like I need to get a long-term binding commercial agreement in place that will guarantee Syzygy certain levels of revenue. And but I'm also a Series D. So
yeah.
By this point, I don't blame the expectors. I expect it of myself. So like, let's go get them.
Yeah, but it's a good lesson that sometimes the market, the finance market, the capital suppliers, there's a lot of swinginess that happens sometimes with capital availability. And I think as a founder, we're always trying to understand like what's that, what are the things they need? And you're trying to predict a year out, 2 years out. When you raise your Series A, you're trying to predict what do you need for your Series B, right? What do you need for your Series C? And some of it is you have to talk to customers. I don't know if any of us are looking at this saying that, the new administration would come in and really sit on climate the way they have. And what would that mean for climate investment? So you have the challenging job of predicting the future. And then you got to live with it when the future gets here, right? That's the reality.
Yeah. And so we haven't been hit by a train yet, and I think I'm going to get us through this one too. Keeping my fingers crossed, though.
we have faith in you over here. So
thank you. I appreciate that.